my name's Eileen Dow, and I'm going to be doing my neurological and musculoskeletal system video. And this is my patient. Can you tell me your name and your birthday?
William Dow, April 25.
Good job. At first glance, I'm going to take a look at his grooming, his personal hygiene. I'm going to note any distress. I'm going to note his facial features, make sure they're symmetrical. Note anything abnormal right offhand. I'm gonna, we tested for level of consciousness, which he's awake, alert. He was able to tell me his name and his date of birth. From then on, I'm gonna move on to simple, we're gonna move on to recent memory and immediate memory. I'm gonna give you 3 words and I need you to repeat them back to me. Cup, ball, pen.
Cup, ball, pen.
Good job, and remember those words because I'm going to ask you later on, okay, what the words were. And I'm going to ask them for easy calculation. So what is 2 plus 2?
Equals 4.
And what's 1 plus 1?
2.
Okay, so the next thing I'm going to test for is judgment. Can you tell me what you would do if you find some money on the floor?
I'll get into something. I'll ask everybody in the whole island if it's their money.
Good job. That is good judgment. He's showing good judgment. From there on, I'm going to move on to the cranial nerve, starting with cranial nerve number 2, which is the optic nerve. I'm going to test for optic nerve number 2 and 3, which is the ocular motor nerve, testing with Perla. So the first thing I'm going to do is see if his pupils are equal and reactive to light. So I'm going to go ahead and shine, look right at me. Good, 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 and good. So pupils are equal and reactive to light. Next thing I'm going to do is test for accommodation. Look at the wall back there. Now look at my pen. Focus. All right, and his eyes did go inward and there was constriction, so that tested for the ocular motor. Next, I'm going to test for cranial nerve number 3, 4, and 6, and we're going to do the extraocular muscles. We're going to do an H formation. Can you follow my pen just with your eyes? Good. So cranial nerves number 3, 4, and 6 are intact. Next, I'm going to test cranial nerve number 5 with a piece of cotton swab. I'm going to try to elicit a blinking sensation. Stare forward. And he did blink, which is the appropriate response. Next, I'm going to ask my patient to close his eyes. And I'm going to touch with 3 different objects. I'm going to touch his forehead. Can you feel me touching you? Close your eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Close your eyes.
Oh, I know what is this.
Can you feel me touching you?
Yeah.
I'm going to touch his cheek.
This is a pen.
Can you feel me touching you?
Yes.
And then can you feel me touching you? Did it feel the same all over the place?
Yes.
Okay, close your eyes again.
This is a big stick.
Do you feel me touching you? Close your eyes. Do you feel me touching you?
Yes.
What about there?
Yes.
On which side? Both sides. All right. And then close your eyes one more time.
This is a cotton ball.
Do you feel me touching you?
Yes.
Where? Okay, close your eyes. Do you feel me touching you?
Yes.
And then close your eyes. Good job. All right, so cranial nerve number 5 is intact. Next, I'm going to move on to cranial nerve number 7. I'm going to ask my patient to smile big. Puff your cheeks. Puff your cheeks. Put your eyebrows up. Good job. And so cranial nerve number 7 is intact. Next, we're going to test for cranial nerve number 8, which is with the whisper test. We're going to cup his ear. And I'm going to say a word, and you need to repeat it if you can hear it, okay?
99.
Well done. So number 8 is intact. We're going to move on to cranial nerve number 9 and 10. We're not going to actually elicit the gag reflex, but we're going to look at the pharynx. So if you can say ah, say ah, good job. So uvula is midline, and it's both sides are equal and rising at the same time. And uvula, like I said, it's midline. And that the gag reflex test, cranial nerve number 10, which we're not going to do. Cranial nerve number 11, we're going to test muscles. So I'm going to ask the patient to shrug his shoulders and feel resistance against my hands. Good job. And equal strength bilaterally. Next, I'm going to put my hand against his cheek, and I'm going to ask the patient to turn his head towards my hand and meet resistance. Actually, also intact. Next, the last cranial nerve is cranial nerve number 12, and I'm going to ask the patient to stick out his tongue and move it side to side, and stick it out. Good. And what I'm looking for is tremors. There were no tremors noted, so cranial nerve number 12 is intact, and that completes all the cranial nerves. Next, we're going to do the musculoskeletal system. So we're going to first start off with the upper extremities, and the first thing we're going to look at is the shoulders. So I'm going to ask my patient to stand up, and we're going to test for abduction. So I'm going to go ahead and tell him to extend his arms to the side and bring them all the way up. Touch his palms, bring them down. Good. And we're going to test for external rotation. So I'm going to ask him to clasp his hands behind his head and open his elbows. Open your arms. There you go. And then we're going to ask him to turn around for abduction. For internal rotation. If you could put your hands behind your back, and then try to bring them up as much as you can. All right, that's internal rotation. So we're going to test for his elbows next. We're going to test his range of motion in his elbows. We're going to ask him to put his hands out in front of him. Put your arms out, and then bend and forward. And we're going to do inward, and then we're going to test outward. Good. That's great. Next thing we're going to do is test his hands and his wrists. So we're going to ask him to flex, down, and extend, flex, and extend. That's good range of motion. We're going to do the abduction, and it's our internal rotation of the wrist and external, so internal, in, out, in, out. And now his fingers, we're going to do flex and extend. Good job. And then we're going to test for his abduction and adduction, sorry. So we're going to abduct. We're going to spread your fingers out and adduct. You're going to put them together. Good. That completes the upper extremities. And then we're going to move to lower extremities. So I'm going to ask my patient to lay down for me. So upper extremities were 5 out of 5. Now we're going to test for his lower extremities. So I'm going to put his arms down. We're going to ask him to put his knee up to his chest. So can you bend this leg up to the chest? Good. All right. That's good range of motion. If you could stand up for me. Next, we're going to do, we're going to ask the patient to sit down again. And we're we're going to ask him to try to move his knee up and against resistance against my arm. So I'm going to put my hand here in his thigh and ask the patient to move up. Good, that's some good resistance. And next we're going to ask him to internal and external rotation of the ankle. So if you could push it in and out, just your ankle. In, out. Good job. And then you're going to point, and back, and point, and back. Good job. So I'm going to try to give him a little resistance. Good. So lower extremities are 5 out of 5 also. And that completes the upper and lower extremities. Next, we're going to inspect the spine. We're going to test his range of motion in the spine. So I'm going to ask the patient to stand up. Stand up straight, with both feet together. And I'm going to ask the patient to bend forward, touching his toes. And I'm going to note the curvature of his spine, make sure it's aligned, make sure it's even. I'm going to note that there is no kyphosis, lordosis, or scoliosis here. All right, stand up. While standing behind the patient, I'm going to ask the patient to look up and bend backwards. Look up. There you go. Good job. And then I'm going to ask the patient to bend to the side. Bend sideways. And then to the other side. Okay. Good range of motion. Next, we're going to test for neurological function. We're going to ask the patient to walk in a tandem gait. I'm going to ask him to put one foot in front of the other and walk forward. Trying to keep your balance. Then I'm going to ask the patient to turn around and walk backwards. Okay, next we're going to ask the patient to do, we're going to test his plantar flexion and his dorsiflexion. So I'm going to ask him to walk on his heels and then turn around and walk on his tippy toes. Okay, and then we're going to test for the Romberg test. So I'm going to ask my patient to stand up straight and close his eyes. I'm going to note any swaying, off balance. A little swaying is normal, but he's not losing his balance completely. Good. You could open your eyes. Then I'm going to ask for a pronator drift. So I'm going to ask the patient to put his arms out in front of him. Out in front of him. Put your palms up. Put them right in front of you. And close your eyes. Keep your arms up. Keep your arms up. Good. Good. You can put your arms down. So that is a normal finding. Next, I'm going to do the rapid altering motion. So I'm going to ask the patient to sit down and put his hands on his palms facing down on his legs, on his thighs, and then I'm going to do repetitive movement. Faster, faster. Okay, good job. I'm going to ask him for dexterity, so I'm going to ask him to touch his thumb to his finger, to his pinky, that's fine. The next one, and then go backwards, and then go forward, and then backwards. Good job. And then we're going to do the point-to-point test. So I'm going to ask my patient to touch his finger to my finger, touch his nose, touch my finger, touch his nose, touch my finger, touch his nose. And we're looking for clumsiness. Next, we're going to ask my patient to lie down. We're going to do the heels to shin test. So I'm going to ask my patient to put his heel and run it up his leg and then down again. Do that. Okay, good, perfect. And then we're going to test for the Babinski sign. A normal finding would be the legs or the toes curled curling in. That's what I'm going to be looking for. So I'm going to hold my patient's ankle and go with a semi-sharp object, which the toes did curl in. So we would note that as a plantar flexion, sign go with the toes going inward. All right, and the last thing we're going to test for is the tendon flexion, or the deep tendon flexion. So I'm going to ask my patient to sit up. And I'm going to put them up here again. And the first one we're going to test for is the tricep. So I'm going to ask my patient to dangle his arm. We're going to look for the tendon right in here. And I don't have a tendon hammer, so I'm going to use the bell of my stethoscope, the diaphragm of my stethoscope. And I'm going to hold, try to for you to see. And we elicited a reaction there. So that tested for the tricep. I'm going to move down to the patella. So you're going to ask your patient to dangle his legs. And so right in the tendon, right in here, the same thing. And look for a reaction. And there you go. And that was a good reflex. And the last one is going to be the Achilles. So I'm going to just flex his foot, and we're going to look for the foot to go downward. So I'm going to look for the tendon back here. And that makes his foot flex down. And so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to recall the memory, the recent memory. So Liam, do you remember the 3 words that I gave you earlier?
Yes.
What were they?
Cup,
Mm-hmm.
ball, pen.
Well done. And that completes my neurological and musculoskeletal video. Thank you.